Greetings in the name of the Lord. I'm Dr. Joe Fierce, and today I want to shift from my normal topic on the rapture, which I will come back with shortly, talking about 3-Eye Atlas. But at any rate, today I want to talk to you about fasting. I want to explain to you the difference between a biblical fast and biblical consecration. The two have two distinct purposes. Let's first look at a biblical fast. A biblical fast means to abstain from food, and in some cases even liquid. The Hebrew word for fasting is tusam, which literally means to close the mouth or cover the mouth. Therefore, biblical fasting is a deliberate abstinence from food for spiritual power and spiritual breakthroughs. Anytime you fast, it should be done with consecrating yourself. This is because fasting without a consecrated heart becomes nothing more than a diet. Sadly, this is what many Christians I should say, are doing in our modern world today, and it's causing us to be ineffective. Now, a good example of a biblical fast is seen in Daniel chapter 9, specifically in verse 3, whereby the scripture says, "Then I turned my face to the Lord, seeking him by prayer and pleas for mercy through fasting and sackcloth and ashes." In this instance, Daniel did not eat any food. So if you're eating, you're not doing a biblical fast, period. A trend today among many Christians is the fact that pastors are calling Daniel's 21 days of consecration a fast. Yet when we look at the word consecration, it will be clear that Daniel wasn't fasting a biblical fast during those 21 days. I'm sure someone might even be thinking, is it biblical to go on a partial fast? Hands to mouth, cover mouth. If that simply means skipping a meal or not eating anything for a dedicated period, that indeed is considered biblical fasting. Now that we know what biblical fasting is, let's look at biblical consecration. Nowadays, because of faulty teaching and a lot of rogue teaching on YouTube, Christians are confusing consecration with fasting. I've heard so many people say, I'm fasting from television, I'm fasting from candy, I'm fasting from social media. I'm like, what? What they're actually saying is, I'm consecrating myself for a closer walk with the Lord. The biblical meaning of consecration simply means being set apart for God's purposes. Consecration then is about dedicating yourself to the Lord. Hear me clearly. Consecration does not require abstaining from food, although you can fast while you consecrate. It's about recommitting your life to God through a more focused devotion to the Lord. A good example of consecration is seen in Daniel chapter 1, specifically in verse 8 and 12, whereby the scripture says, "But Daniel resolved that he would not defile himself with the king's food or with the wine they drink." Now in verse 12 he says, "Test your servant for these 10 days. Let us be given vegetables to eat and water to drink." Clearly we can see that Daniel ate during those 21 days of consecration. It wasn't a fast. So we can say it was not a biblical fast as it was in chapter 9. Now I hope this clears up the difference between consecration and fasting. That is all.